My wife always makes fun of me for bad stories, so I always do that.
She makes fun of you for everything, to be honest.
She does. Oh.
We getting the drop in? Hello and welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. I'm back. I took a week off last week, but I'm back with James, Tyler. We've got a special guest who I'll intro momentarily. But first, I want to talk to you about Fantasy Points, our sponsor today. They're awesome. So right now you can use code DHH22 and get 10% off a Fantasy Point subscription. 90% of subscribers made the playoffs in 2020 and 2021. So what that tells me is in 2022, 90% of the subscribers are going to make the playoffs again. It's the lowest price in the industry. They have an analytic-powered draft tool, a DFS optimizer, DFS becoming more and more popular as it's becoming more mainstream, so you can go on there as well. It's awesome. So make sure you check out fantasypoints.com. Again, code DHH22. And hopefully you're watching this right now live on YouTube. So make sure you like and subscribe. Drop a like, as the kids say. I watch a lot of YouTube because I have a 9-year-old. So that's what they say,
that's
I
the
guess.
Reason. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for
he's a big
sure.
fan. He's a big fan of the song "Banana Phone."
You know the most popular YouTube video of all time is Baby Shark, right? That's got like 8 bajillion views.
Our guest definitely has no idea because he has no kids. He just mentioned.
Yeah.
So he's probably saying he's like, these are all fake songs.
He's literally a man on an island. So what we're going to talk about today is the 2022 rookie running back class. So we're going to do that with our special guest. We have Tyler and James. They're always here. So they're not as special as they're special in a different way. They're not as special as our guest today, which is the one Alfredo Brown, former college scout for FIU. He's got dynasty content at Football Guys. He's host at the Pretend GM podcast, and you can follow him at Alfredo Brown GM on Twitter. Alfredo, what's going on, my man?
This is awesome. I'm excited to be with you guys. I mean, we had our Easter Sunday, it's just nonsense shenanigans. And like you said, I have no kids. So today was really awesome. I just got to sit back and watch all the parents run around, chasing their kids. They were out at the pool and like had one kid jumping on the other kid. And like, what was the first rule of the pool? And I'm just sitting here with my drink. Like, this is just a fantastic Sunday.
Every day of the week.
That'll be me over draft weekend when I'm not home. So that'll be
it's so close.
I know it is very, very close.
I dread Easter. I dread family holidays because it is just frenzy of little kids running around. It's loud. It's
also because
annoying.
you owe Jesus money and he came back wanting his money back. That's
the only thing I'm happy about is that I get to sit down and have a couple scotches and maybe I watched the Yankees today get their asses whooped. So it was a good day.
I did get to watch most of the Celtics game. They won by a point, so I was happy about that.
Also, I feel really overwhelmed with. I'm guessing Alfredo is Italian. I mean, he's not.
No, because chicken Alfredo.
Why? Because Italian? Alfredo.
No. Oh my god.
I don't know if I should be like offended or like complimented or I don't even know what to do.
We've made some analytic mistakes before, and this one will go down in that.
Hey, James, your last name is Crease. Do you have an iron?
Yeah, I don't know.
Zing.
Well, I mean,
thanks.
I'm not profiling, but
apparently not.
I think now Alfredo needs to tell everyone what his nationality is because now Tyler, thought he was Italian because he was Alfredo.
So actually, living in South Florida, I mean Miami, you can guess it. I'm half Cuban, and then my dad's like the whitest dude in the world from Connecticut. So pretty good mix.
New England, he's a good person.
Cuban, Connecticut.
Very nice. Exactly.
Connecticut or. I don't know. I'm trying.
I don't know.
So, I've never tried to mesh together.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Connective. I don't know. We do have. It's been a slow week. I almost put out a tweet earlier this week with the guy standing there with the stick in the NFL, like do something, because it's been quiet compared to all the crazy stuff we've been through over the last couple of months. But we do have some news. There's been some quarterback news here in the NFL. Derek Carr signed a 3-year, $121.5 million extension. So now he's linked with his boy Devontae Adams. Supposedly they live next to each other. They obviously went to college together. All the shower narratives for Derek Carr and
they
Devontae
get ice cream
Adams
together.
Yeah, I think they play hopscotch and do all those things together too. But he is there for 3 years, $120 million. So he is a $40 million a year quarterback, and he's got the best eyeliner in the industry for Derek Carr. So the Raiders are committing to Carr, which, you know what? I think Derek Carr is in fantasy circles. He's forever underrated. I think he's like the most solid QB2 ever in like Superflex leagues. Tyler, what did you think when you saw this commitment to Derek Carr long term? This had to make you feel pretty good about guys like Waller and Adams going forward, that they're going to have some consistency there, right?
Yeah, I just think all things stay. You don't really have to worry about Carr going anywhere. I think for a while there, the big worry with Carr
Carr's
was
not going anywhere because it's broken down, right?
Well, I mean,
No?
that's what we were
Okay.
thinking.
I'm just trying to make
Carr
Tyler
could get
jokes
traded. Carr could get traded. To stop. Only I can. Carr could get traded. Carr could be supplanted by a rookie. There a lot of things were going on like 2-3 years ago. And so now you kind of solidify he's staying, he's here. He's going to be the guy for the next 3 or 4 years. So in Superflex leagues, if you have him, you feel comfortable. Like that's what he is. He's comfort. He's a nice pillow. He's not the most comfortable pillow, but you know what? He's going to get you through the night. And you got that main pillow. That's a nice, cool one. That's your quarterback one. Carr's the pillow that helps support a little bit.
I like that. He's a supporting pillow. That's a
Yes.
beautiful way to put it.
That you come here for pillow metaphors.
As seen on TV or Bed Bath and Beyond.
Ooh, Bed Bath. Let's give him Bed Bath.
All right.
The as seen on TV is like your, a little bit further down the.
Your miracle pillow, your bamboo pillow.
Yeah. My pillow up here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on what Tyler said about Derek Carr. So let's get into Kyler Murray, probably one of my least favorite people to talk about. He's approaching Aaron Rodgers level of players I don't like to talk about just because I don't know. They annoy me. But his agent pulled the contract proposal. He's on the last year of his rookie deal worth $5.5 million. The Cardinals say they're not trading Kyler Murray whatsoever.
We'll see.
Alfredo, do you think this may have opened a window for you to potentially buy low on Kyler Murray with the uncertainty in the future? Although we almost never see franchise quarterbacks move on after their rookie year. They always usually get locked up in a deal. So where we are right now, do you see a buying window possibly for Kyler, or is it just kind of business as usual?
I mean, you can, I guess, if you really have that conviction in him, but it's to me, it's less about Kyler and more about like what's around him. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, who's getting older and older. Rondale Moore, who we have no idea what his role is going to be. They brought back in 65-year-old AJ Green, so it's like, okay, and then they put
young.
Yeah, exactly. And and then like they committed all this money to James Conner, which I thought was interesting considering how everyone was successful in that running game last year. So, man, if you're investing or buying low in Kyler, it's because you just really, really believe in the talent. But even me, and I like him as a fantasy asset, it's hard for me to buy into that because I don't know where Arizona's going. If they have another poor year where they can't really win a whole lot, I mean, Kingsbury's gone, and then what happens? They start to clean house, and there's just so much going on around him. It's just it makes me uncomfortable.
I agree, Alfredo. I think the Cardinals have this line of crap starting to build up, and we're just waiting for it to explode everywhere. And if Kyler doesn't get a deal done, it may be the start of it.
Tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tyler on Taco Tuesday.
Too much food.
How do you explain the Arizona Cardinals? Well, Tyler goes to Chipotle on Tuesdays.
Yeah. I think Cliff Kingsbury, the fake genius, is on thin ice.
So also, I feel like the Baker thing is causing a little tension because Cliff knows Baker. We all know that, and they could work well together. They could pay Baker $18 million and for a year and see what they got, or pay Kyler $40 plus a year. And maybe he keeps getting hurt. Maybe that's not what they want to do. So I honestly think that could be an issue as well, because maybe the Cardinals are like, hey, we could save some money here and just go with Baker. And, we could maybe play a little defense. Cliff can work his fake magician style offense and we could roll from here. But it's interesting. I don't think any three of us are really big on how Kyler approaches things.
His immaturity level is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, we said it in season this year. We're starting to realize, like, every time he gets hit, he just lays on the ground. He points at everybody else.
His first 8 or 9 weeks are great for fantasy, and then like the back half always ends up being kind of a clunker. He's not winning leagues for you. Let's put it that way.
Yes, and if it was me, I would. I mean, I don't think you can really buy because whoever has him is looking to sell. I feel everywhere I've been, they're looking to sell, but they still want Kyler Price, and I'm not willing to pay that. So that's where I'm at.
That's a good point. Other QB news real quick. We don't need to talk much about it because it's about Geno Smith. But he did stay with Seattle for a 1-year, $4 million deal worth up to $7 million in incentives, which is insane to me, but whatever. Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll said that Drew Lock's propensity for turnovers doesn't fit with us. So Geno Smith, definitely a super flex freebie until they make a move, whether it's via the draft or they trade for Baker. So if you've got off-season waivers and Geno's available in super flex leagues, I mean, if you got a spot on the end of the bench, go ahead and pick them up. You never know what's going to happen. All right, let's get into wide receivers. We had some oldies but goodies signed this week. I know you're all excited about AJ Green re-signing with the Cardinals for a 1-year deal for an undisclosed amount. I can't imagine it was for a lot. I actually thought AJ Green was better than I thought he was going to be last year with the Cardinals. He wasn't completely dead like we thought he was. He was still bye-week startable, I guess. Sure. And then Sammy Watkins signs a 1-year deal up to $4 million with the Green Bay Packers. So they've completely addressed their wide receiver position. There's no reason to draft one or two now. I mean, Watkins is it, right? Like the former
is he
number
back
4
up in the top 12 receiver for Dynasty? That's all I'm asking.
I mean,
only for week 1.
He's got the draft
and week
capital.
16.
He's got the athleticism. No, I'm not going to go through that. Sammy Watkins is, for all essential reasons, kind of toast. He was with Baltimore last year. We all wanted him to be great in Kansas City. He was good in the playoffs for them. But Sammy's just, this doesn't move the needle. He might not even make the roster. Let's be honest. Alfredo, give me any commentary you might have about Dusty AJ Green and a former star in the making that never really exploded in Sammy Watkins.
So really quick, AJ Green, I mean, you kind of said it as best you could. Like maybe you start him when you have a lot of receivers on bye, but it's got to be a really juicy matchup, and then maybe an injury to DeAndre Hopkins. And that's assuming that Arizona's not going to go out and draft someone. Like if they have a Treylon Burks or someone sitting there for them when they get to their pick in the first round, it's kind of weird to think that that Kingsbury might not go after one of those players. And then Sammy Watkins, he's been toast for years, man. Like start him week 1 because he's great in week 1, and that's when he usually pops off. And then after that, just it's where else he can't go anywhere else that we would have any kind of faith. Is like you mentioned, KC, Baltimore. He's been Los Angeles. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we're going to get to the core of why we're here. But before we do, I want to make sure you know about Trophy Smack. Now, if you're in the fantasy industry, you play fantasy sports, you need a trophy, this is the one place that you have to go. You go to Trophy Smack. They were featured on Shark Tank. Mark Cuban has backed them. They are an awesome organization. You can get trophies for football, hockey, basketball, baseball, soccer, completely customizable. They have the right trophy for you. If you use code DHHRing and get a free $60 championship ring with your purchase of a trophy or a belt. They also have stuff for the losers of the league because we don't want to forget those bums that came in last place. Maybe they tanked. They've got the toilet bowls. You name it. You can go on trophysmack.com and find it. And when you do that, again, it's DHH ring to get that free ring at checkout. All right. So let's get into rookie running backs. Now, Alfredo, you are here to bring your expertise in this area when we're talking about scouting and we're talking about rookies. So let's just go. We're going to go 1 to 5 and we'll go in that order. So Alfredo, who is your running back 1 in this class? I have a feeling I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, and I don't think you guys are going to like it. Yeah, my running back 1 in this class is Kenneth Walker III. And I know that ruffles a lot of feathers.
It's me too.
Me too, buddy.
Okay. It's all right.
Okay. Cool, man. Because it's just, I know it ruffles a lot of feathers, and a lot of analytics people get kind of up in arms when I talk about Kenneth Walker because he didn't have all the receiving work over at Michigan State. But I mean, the guy was just so stinking good. Like it's hard not to have him at running back 1. He's the best pure runner in the class. And I think it's weird that so many people say that he's such a good runner and the best runner and then not have him as the top running back. It's like if you have a wide receiver who's got the best hands and he's the best route runner, would that not be your best wide receiver? So I find it weird that we're looking at the most basic part of what a running back does and what gets them on the field. And we're saying he's the best at it. But he's not going to be our number 1 because he doesn't do the other ancillary things. It's not like he doesn't have hands. Like he doesn't walk out there with nubs. Like my dude can catch. It just wasn't part of the Michigan.
You just offended Kenny Pickett right there.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, Kenny Baby Hands Pickett. My bad.
Hands.
My bad. Yeah, but
Grab my strong hand.
it's not like he can't do it, right? Like you even go back to high school and like he was one of those pass catching backs. That was his role. He ended up in Wake Forest where they don't even know how to use running backs at all. They have another running back who's transferring away now a couple of years later. And then he goes to Michigan State where even self-admittedly their head coach says, yeah, we don't really pass the running backs. So it's not like he can't do it. We saw him in the combine. He looks really smooth. Mm-hmm. To me, he's got the best talent despite maybe not having all the best numbers.
Yeah, I think the thing about running backs that don't catch in college, I mean, we saw what Jonathan Taylor can do in the NFL. And I'll give you a perfect one. He caught like single-digit passes in his career, but has looked good in the NFL. It's A.J. Dillon. Like, I think A.J. Dillon was like, oh, stone hands. He can't catch the ball. And he's actually caught the ball really well for Green Bay. So just because they don't do it in college, again, it's not like they're running around and they can't do it. Like,
and you know crazy. What? Another one, Doug, actually, when I was looking at this, Kareem Hunt, the first 3 years for him at Toledo, he was getting like 13 catches, 12 catches, 15 catches. And then all of a sudden he popped off in his final year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're playing a lot of what ifs, right? But had Kenneth Walker been there another year or been at another college where they really needed to use a running back in that way, who's to say he can't do that? And now Kareem Hunt is almost solely seen as a PPR style back. So I just think it's not a skill set that he lacks or a skill set that isn't easy, that won't be easy for him to bring to the next level.
Yeah. So Tyler, you also have Kenneth Walker at number 1.
Yeah.
James, I think you're going you're probably going to cover Alfredo's number 2 because it's for me it's a consensus top 2. Outside of that, it can start to get a little bit more diversified and a little more wild. But I assume James and we both have Breece Hall as number 1.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so we can go into that. So Alfredo, why don't you go right into to Breece Hall right after Kenneth Walker and kind of the reasons why you've got Hall a little bit below.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just like a few things that it's not like I have him really low where I think he's a bad running back. I just think that he has a few more things that I want to see him improve on. One of the things that I noticed when watching his film is he loses sight of the offensive line in front of him. So what he likes to do is he doesn't fumble a whole lot, but like he looks the ball in as it's coming into him, as opposed to trusting that the ball's going to hit him there in the numbers. And he kind of looks down at it and he misses the defenders that are coming towards him at the front. And you'll notice that in the backfield, he spins a lot before the defender gets there to try to make them miss. And I mean, obviously what's happening is when you spin like that, you lose sight of where you're going and it becomes really hard. So it ends up becoming a thing where he's playing a lot of playground football sometimes. And it kind of works for him when he's out on the ends and he's running some zone run concepts and he can get some space, but trying to just run up the middle, follow your blocks and be in just a kind of a man gap scheme. He seems to struggle with that a little bit. And, I think it's not something that can't be corrected. The other thing is, at least in my opinion, he looked very different at the combine. He looked lean. He looked like he cut down a lot. Like when I watched him on film, he almost kind of looked like Mike Davis a little bit to me. Didn't seem like he was as fast as he ran at the combine, but it seems like he dropped about 10 pounds, got, really perfected that track stance, that track speed. And I don't know, and this is kind of it's trusting the eyes, but I just don't know that what we saw at the combine is a clear indication of the player we saw on field, being this 4.3 speed.
I was surprised at that 4.3 because again, I saw the same thing. I thought he looked bigger and thicker in college. So it's going to be interesting if he leaned down to run a faster time, does he in turn add a little bit more weight to get NFL ready? And, that's an interesting could happen. We've seen players do that before. They get lean so they can run faster and then they bulk back up. So that'll be interesting to see where he gets drafted first of all, and then to see his measurements in the rookie mini camps and stuff like that to see if he gained that weight back. Because that's something that I remember Dalvin Cook doing. He got a little bit slimmer and then he put on a little bit of weight after the combine. Is that right, Tyler? I think Dalvin did that.
Yeah, Delvin I thought was going to weigh in a little smaller. But yeah, he bulked up, I felt, a little bit because in college, he kind of looked like that quick jitterbug style, kind of like his brother. But, I mean, he's been playing at 210, 212-ish for his whole career. So I think he really put in work before the combine. And that could be with Breece. My issue with Breece is what you said. It seemed like he was getting away with things in the backfield, like the spin moves. You can get away with that in the Big 12. But when you're playing in the professional level, it's going to be different. Going back to Kenneth Walker, I thought he's the best pure runner. Big 10. I mean, they're expecting run. It's run and defense in the Big 10. And when you're doing that, when they're expecting run all the time, that opens my eyes. Like when you're able to do what he did when everybody's expecting it, I'm all about that. And his tape is fun to watch. Kenneth Walker's tape.
And you love Kenny Walker's swagger too. That dude is just he has got a mean streak, which you love to see. I love players like a Debo last year, right? We started to really see him play aggressively, which is a lot of fun.
I think Kenneth Walker took like 2 deep breaths in the whole combine because he was just really pushing through everything. But it was fun.
Yeah, lots of effort guy. So, James, any commentary on Walker or Hall before we move to the number 3?
I think these two guys are definitive 1 and 2. You can flip them over. It doesn't matter like which way they go. If you like one over the other, I know Tyler and I went at it this week over and over, like we like to. We bicker like husband and wife sometimes.
You just say you like Breece Hall, and I like Kenneth Walker.
Right, and I don't hate Kenneth Walker. If he happens to fall to me in a rookie draft, I'm not disappointed. All right, and I'm hoping they both land at usable landing spots that they can kick off their careers early. I don't want to see them sit and wait and rust on the bench.
Yeah, Alfredo, where would you like to see Walker and Hall ideally land based on skill set and opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of great places, and I
really
know that we've talked about, like, a lot of people have said Houston, and it's like, is that really the best landing spot for them, or is there just not anyone there
from an opportunity standpoint? Sure.
Hey, don't disparage Marlon Mack like that. How dare you?
Oh, Rex Burkhead, he just got extended,
right? And isn't David Johnson still there? Like,
I think he's a free agent.
No, okay.
I made that mistake too. Don't worry.
This is podcast I think 4 we've had to bring up David Johnson. Okay, and that is 4 too many.
Cool.
We should.
How the good old days, David Johnson.
I mean, one of the places that I'd really like for these guys is Atlanta. It seems like a really good spot, especially with Arthur Smith. And not saying that he made Derrick Henry, but he's a guy that seems to know how to use running backs regardless of their size, their skill set. I mean, he made Cordero Patterson work last year. And so he doesn't seem like he's going to be the long-term answer there. He seems to really have carved out a role as the receiving back there. So, I mean, maybe that is a good spot for a guy like Kenneth Walker if you do have receiving concerns, and you kind of let these guys be the 1A and 1B, work it out, and see how they kind of come up. But I think that could be a good spot for any one of these guys.
I do want to go with the Atlanta thing. So they traded back with Denver. They could have taken Javonte Williams and they could have hit, but they traded back. They took Richie Grant, the safety, with their next pick, and he played poorly. In my opinion, if Atlanta has a chance to take any of these running backs in the second round, they are going to smash the button. Like, they realized they made a mistake with Javonte. I realized they made a mistake with Javonte right when they had the chance. I was very upset. But in my opinion, Kenneth Walker fits perfect with what this team needs. He can be the first and second down running back like a Nick Chubb, which is kind of the role we envision him playing. And then, Patterson might give up a few catching plays to Kenneth Walker later on in the season. Then we'll see a true bell cow back roll. And then next season, they'll have Ridley back probably, unless they trade him, and then probably a new quarterback. This offense will grow. But yeah, I agree. I think Atlanta won't make the same mistake again and miss out on these running backs.
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing story to watch. I think this running back class is actually like sneaky deep. There's a lot of good players. It's just going to be interesting to see what the draft capital goes with. Will we see Breece Hall picked in the first round, or is it going to wait until the second? Like, all sorts of interesting stuff. So, Alfredo, we've covered running back 1 and 2. We've got Walker and Hall. Who's going to be number 3 on your list? Because this is where it starts to be like all over the map for a lot of people in rankings I've seen so far this offseason.
Yeah, it is, but I don't understand why. For me, it's still Isaiah Spiller. I mean, all he did was kind of run the 40 we expected. I don't think anyone was expecting him to go out there and run a 4.4. I don't think that anyone was expecting anything all that different. So for me, Isaiah Spiller is still my number 3 running back. I mean, he has a very similar skill set to Breece Hall. He's just obviously not as athletic from what we saw at his pro day and everything that he's done. The thing is he never really broke out as like the major runner, but he was consistent through his 3 years. Despite being kind of big, he doesn't always play as physical as he should. He doesn't really have the breakaway speed, but he's got some good running vision. He's got good footwork. And for me, even though it's not talked about all that much, I think he's actually one of the better pass catching backs in the draft. He might actually have the best hands out of all these running backs in the draft. And I know that doesn't always, come up in conversation with him, but I actually think that he's one of those guys that has a really good kind of 3-down skill set. He reminds me a lot of maybe a slower Joe Mixon or like a Le'Veon Bell, just a really patient kind of bouncy guy that can catch the ball. And I mean, at 6'1", I believe he is. He kind of fits that mold as well.
Yeah, I like that. Tyler, what do you think?
I'm right there. I love Isaiah Spiller and the quick feet. His feet are so quick. Like in the hole, his decisive movement. I love that about him. I think he's actually better inside the line than Breece Hall. He's got it. He's quicker in the head, unlike me. Like right now, I can't find the words, but he's quicker in the hole, and he's a one cut and go type guy, and that's what you want to see with a guy like him. He's not going to outrun you, but man, when he gets to the second level, he can definitely put his pats down and lay some hurt as well. I think so. Going back to the limited touches, Ray Garvin, he even commented that a lot of these SEC schools, they don't overuse their running backs because they promise that. Like they sit here and they say you're not going to get much carries because they want you to have a longer career in the NFL. And
a lot of these teams have good depth too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they have A-Chain as the second back.
Oh,
like
God.
a tracks. I mean, come on. Like you can't not use him.
He's so fast. But yeah, I think everybody's sleeping on Spiller, and he's going to become a massive value in rookie drafts.
I was just going to say that because I've seen some Twitter polls with mock drafts, and I've seen Spiller start to spill his way down the board, and like in the late.
Nice.
Kind of like Javonte last year in Superflex. Like Javonte was like 108, 109. And I'm not saying Spiller's Javonte. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying he may provide that type of value where you thought he might have been a top, 6 or 7 pick in Superflex, that he might, maybe he's the end of the first or the early second, depending on how this draft goes. But again, it's going to be one of those players where I'm really interested to see A, where he lands, and B, what the draft capital looks like. Because I think in my opinion, there are so many solid running backs in this draft. I think that teams aren't going to draft a lot of them in the first 3 rounds. So that could factor into even more values in this running back class. Because
if they hit the 4th round, I might not even touch them. Like that's kind of where I'm going back.
But I think that's a mistake. Because if you look at it in years, like if there's a lot of good running backs in this class, it's going to push the overall class down in the real NFL draft, in my opinion.
We said that about Devontae Booker as well.
All right, let me jump in here.
That was a long time ago.
Outside the top 2, all of these guys are bad at something. All right, they're not elite. I'm going to stomp on Isaiah Spiller. I wasn't impressed too much especially with his combine work. Tyler, you said he has fast feet. But when it came to blocking, he really didn't have the fast feet. He couldn't keep his shoulders square. So I'm afraid for that part. It depends on where he lands. And I don't think he's a bell cow back. I think he's a complimentary back that'll come in for pass catching work and then go off to the side. I mean, ceiling, maybe Cordarrelle Patterson. He has that skill set of catching the ball and getting to the outside. But I'm having a hard time really sinking my teeth into Spiller or any of these guys.
Analysis
later. Oh, well, you never like what I say anyway. We're built to argue.
I mean, he's built 6'1", 220, and you're saying he's a Cordarrelle Patterson?
He's a pass catch. I'm not. You see, you always say that. Like, when I bring a player, it's
in my opinion, he's more of a first and second down guy. Like that's what I see out of him.
But he's got the size for it.
Yeah, I don't see it, and I'm happy that he's falling, which made me feel good about the fact that I had him lower than consensus pre-combine. So it makes a little bit more sense for me. I don't know, man. I'm a little nervous about this running back class. We all get excited. We all get rookie fever. And then it's the guy, Doug, like you said, in the 4th, 5th round that gets picked. That's actually better than some of these other
Elijah
players.
Mitchell.
Yeah, I think just to go back to, I think Tyler,
there's like a James Robinson. There might be a James Robinson in this class.
I think there is. So with the mindset of like, if a running back's drafted in the 4th round or later, like I'm not going to touch them. Like if those running backs slip to me in rookie drafts, like I'm going to draft them because I think it's a product of the way that the class is being outside the top 2 guys being very similar with a lot of guys. So I think that's going to push them down the board. So if people are worried about draft capital, I understand that's an important metric, especially in a lot of algorithms and stuff like that. But for me personally, I'm going to look at that as not necessarily about the player. It's about the position.
If Spiller's the 4th, if Spiller's a 4th or 5th round guy, I'm not taking him in the first.
No,
That's
I wouldn't
kind
take
of what
him
I
in
meant.
I wouldn't take him in the first either.
Mid to late second, perfect spot for him.
Right.
And
But if
that's
that
where he
happens
could
with a
fall.
bunch of these guys, like give me all the value, like in the late second, early third, stuff like that for sure. All right, let's get into number 4. But before we do have a quick uniform change from our guy, Dalvin Cook, going from number 33 to number 4, his college number at FSU.
That wasn't in the show notes.
It wasn't. I just made it up. So the number 4 made me think of it. So Alfredo, right after Isaiah Spiller, who you got it for?
So this is kind of a weird part. Like I have my ranking set, but it's not really set in stone. For me, running backs 4 through like 8 are all interchangeable based on their landing spot and draft capital. So for right now, I kind of just went off of my film grade. And for me, it's Jerome Ford. That's who I've got there at that spot for now. It's kind of like a placeholder. But for me, Jerome Ford, what I really liked is, I mean, we know he's an Alabama transfer, went to Cincinnati, and he was great in his time at Cincinnati there. And he kind of showed that he can do a little bit of everything, averaging over 6 yards per carry. He had a nose for the end zone, had nearly 20 touchdowns. What I love is just like he does all of the basic, simple things that you want out of a running back. He's not overly shifty. He is a one cut and go runner. On film, he looked a lot faster. I think a lot of people expected him to be the fastest running back at the combine, and he wasn't, and that was a little surprising for people. But for him, it's just his feet are always driving. He doesn't have all the extra frills and everything else. He attacks the smallest of running lanes. And one thing that I actually really like, and some NFL general managers might like, is there's not a lot of tread on the tires. I think that the only thing is just, he runs a little bit tall at times. He's only done it for one season. All of these guys are going to have their warts. But for me, Jerome Ford is the guy that I think that you can kind of just plug him into an NFL offense and you're not overly worried about a major glaring weakness with him.
Okay.
I love it. I have him marked as one of my sleepers in this draft. So
yeah, there you go. Tyler, what do you think about Jerome Ford?
Yeah, I usually with running backs that are in that range, I'm looking at the recruiting. And out of high school, he's a very high recruit, like he said, an Alabama transfer. He's somebody that if you are just here for like a 10 to 15 point with some upside, like that could be his ceiling. That's kind of where he's at. And it could be to me, he's a guy that's going to get drafted, be a second running back on a team, and then in case of an injury or say Philadelphia takes him and they hate every running back, it seems, on their roster, that he could supplant Miles Sanders, kind of that type of runner as well, except like he said, like without the stupid stuff, the jiggle back and forth. He's just a no nonsense type guy, does the job. And maybe that's what Philly wants, and that'd be a good landing spot for him.
I really want to see what running back the Chargers draft.
Interesting.
Yeah, that'd be a good spot for him too.
Because Joshua Kelly ain't it. Larry Roundtree ain't it. Justin Jackson's a free agent, and it's Eckler. So they're going to draft somebody, or they're going to wait and sign a veteran.
Maybe.
What if they took Breece Hall in the first and just blew everybody's mind?
What happens if they took Jerome Ford and let him play in the middle? Like run between the 20s. I don't mind that. He's a big back. He runs downhill. He can still catch the ball, and he's consecutive with his amount.
He can be the new nature.
When he gets into the second level, from the film I watched, he has like another gear, man. He just kicks it, hits the clutch, and he's gone down the field. And that's what I really liked about him. He's not afraid to take a hit. He bulldozes some people and breaks through to the second level and takes off. He's going to be a problem for some linebackers.
He hits the NOS. Fast and Furious.
It's the NOS.
Jerome Ford.
There's actually another running back that we will mention that I would love him to land in LA.
All right. Well, when we get to that running back, you make sure not to forget to mention it. I'm going to hold you accountable.
Okay.
All right. So we got Jerome Ford at number 4 for Ford.com. No. So Alfredo, who's rounding out the top 5 here for you?
Okay, so here's another name that might not be as widely talked about in fantasy circles, but NFL circles. For me, it's Damien Pierce out of Florida. Sorry for the letdown, but I love what Damien Pierce brings, and man, I think everyone has seen the clip of him running after his helmet pops off, and the guy just runs angry. He runs aggressive. He absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl practices, and guys like that, I hate to kind of like pick up on narrative and just like here's the opinion, but narrative matters. We've seen so many Senior Bowl players in the past just rise up draft boards, and if Damien Pierce gets that good draft capital, Like we just talked about a team like the Chargers that might want to get a running back they can put in there to complement Austin Eckler. Damien Pierce is a dude that could do that. I don't know why Florida didn't use him. The Florida didn't seem to know what they were doing, and we saw that kind of last year with Kadarius Toney. But Damien Pierce, he can pass block, probably best in the class, maybe top 2. He can catch the ball. He runs really well. I love him. The only thing is he can just get a little overly aggressive and sometimes just go for the hit rather than finding a clean running lane. You know, you asked about those intangibles. Why didn't he get the ball more? So that's a guy that I think if he gets the high draft capital, he could actually be really valuable for fantasy.
James, what do you think about Pierce? You seem to like light up a little bit there.
Yeah, I don't mind him. I have him as my RB8 right now because there's a lot of guys, like we said, that can be interchangeable. But there's a fun fact about him. He scored every 7 times he touched the ball in his senior year. That's 13.4% of his touches because he only had 119. Like Alfredo said, they limited him. And I think they limited him because didn't they have another back? Like, I don't think he was the only one there.
I would hope so.
Yeah. But, and it's really not Florida's style just to feed the running back either. So I think he has the potential to impress in camp, come in as a backup, and maybe get the chance to show a little bit more in his second year. But he's definitely a guy that is on my radar. Like all these guys that we're talking about, if they fall to, like, this is 3rd round territory for me. I'm not leaping in the early second, early first, or the first round to draft one of these running backs at this point.
Yeah, maybe he stays in Florida, becomes a Dolphin, and Raheem Mostert gets hurt in week 3 and fire up the band like him.
He's
and
definitely going to be a future fan.
Alfredo's shaking his head. You're talking Dolphins, and you can't talk Dolphins to Alfredo.
You're a Dolphins fan?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yes, sir.
I see the Star Wars back there. I'm happy about that.
Yeah,
well, what you can't see is just like right off cameras. I have a Tua Tagovailoa jersey hanging on the wall here, and then on the other side of the camera, there's a Dan Marino helmet. Got a Don Shula signed thing. So I got Dolphins, Ricky Williams jersey over there. It's everywhere.
So each show you do, you spin your desk, and then you have a different background.
What you need is an actual picture of a dolphin. And then people are like, oh, you're a
Dolphin no football reference. I'm just a really big fan of the animal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. Like
with,
Tyler.
Exactly.
With Pierce, Bernard Pierce's brother, right, Doug?
Former Ravens running back.
Former Ravens running back.
You got to let our guests in on the joke, Tyler.
I listened to last week's episode. Thanks.
I was nice. I didn't say anything about Isaiah Spiller this time.
So yeah, I think he's going to be a fine running back. And from what I'm hearing is NFL teams love him. And we are too low as draft and dynasty people because I think the NFL has him in like the 3rd round range.
Awesome.
Think Alexander Madison.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that.
Before we move on to rookie running backs 6 through 10, I want to talk to you a little bit about Underdog, one of our newest sponsors. So thank you, Underdog. The NFL offseason has you hyped and you don't want to join another startup. Well, guess what? You can go and download the Underdog app right now. Hit pause, go download it, come back, use code DHH. You can deposit up to $100 and they'll match it right away. It's free money for something you're going to play anyway. So you got some free money to enter yourself into the rookies and sophomore drafts. If you don't do just fantasy football, cool. You can do MLB. They have NBA. You can do NFL best balls and over-under predictions for in-season, which prop bets is probably what I make the most money on. So don't miss out on that deal. Once again, it's code DHH for your deposit up to $100 matched from Underdog. Go get it on the Play Store or the Apple iTunes Store. It's there. It's awesome. It's super, super cool. Probably the best up-and-coming fantasy product, in my opinion, is Underdog. So check it out today. Use code DHH. Thank you very much. All right, so let's get on to running back 6 through 10. We had Damien Pierce from Florida coming at number 5. Alfredo, hit me with 6.
All right, so my guy. Numbers. I mean, it's probably going to be your guy because a lot of people like him, and it's Zamir White, the running back out of Georgia. Is that it?
No, but I do really like him, and he's the guy I would love it in LA. He's perfect.
NFL circles are talking him up high. I've read this week.
I had Zamir at 4, so fair.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one of these guys that was a very highly recruited, and I mean, at this point, who doesn't love a Georgia running back? Very few of them don't do well. He's definitely got the skill set of a first and second down back in the league, but he's another one that he's very similar to Jerome Ford. And on tape, I was thinking Ford was going to be a lot faster, and Zamir White showed up to the combine. And I think that's why he's rising up so many people's boards, is just how well he did at the combine and how he looked. And how he looked, man. Yeah, he was smooth with his footwork. And that's the thing is you typically think like big guys and you expect him to be clunky, and he wasn't. And like the dude's big, but he's rocked up. Like he is cut from the head to the feet. And man, he gave up a little bit of work to James Cook. Obviously, I mean, that's another guy. That's another guy who, who's a high end prospect, but he can definitely, and someone said it the other day, and I can't remember which show it was. It's just like you have your first three backs and then a lot of Khalil Herberts out there, all guys who are probably going to be like the second running back on a team that when they get a shot, they're going to do really well. And so I really think that this is a guy that, just like Damien Pierce, can get a really good, and Jerome Ford, he can get a shot at being an early down back in the NFL, and that can grow to a little bit more. What worries me is the pass blocking and the receiving work. There really wasn't a whole lot of it, and when he did it, it just didn't look natural.
Gotcha. Yeah, Zamir White's been getting hyped up. There was, I think it was NBC Sports Edge had something like Zamir White is like look in NFL circles, like regarded pretty highly in this running back class. So don't be surprised. I think even someone said, don't be surprised if he was the first running back off the board. And I was like, excuse me?
I've heard that about both of the Georgia running backs, by the way, that either one of them could be first off the board. And I'm like, that's just nuts. That
would be bonkers to me, but we've seen weirder things happen, especially this season so far. So that'll be interesting. Tyler or James, any extra dialogue on Zamir White?
He's RB5 for me. I would love him in the second round, early second, mid second. And I would project him as a third round NFL pick, maybe late second, around that area. But in my opinion, he's coming off after at least Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker.
Yeah. Agreed on the draft capital. He's an okay pass blocker. He may need a little bit more work to see more time on the field. But other than that, he's great. He has great balance, like we discussed. And he follows his blocking well, so he knows his routes the way they're supposed to be ran. So I think he translates well to the NFL.
Yeah, I think White's a really, really solid prospect all around for the most part. So, all right, we're on number 7. Who you got?
All right, so number 7, I've got Tyler Algiere, the running back out of BYU.
BYU, yep.
And I think that he fell down a lot of people's boards because of the way he ran at the combine. That's the main reason, just because his name is Tyler.
We are super.
Is that Tyler's brother there? And Tyler.
So he must have red hair too, because his first name is Tyler.
Math.
Like, I mean, he's got a red mark on my draft board. That's
the math adds up.
But I think that he fell on a lot of people's board just because of being, running the 4.6 the combine. And it's like, okay, how many successful NFL running backs have we seen still do that and still be successful at the next level? So once again, it's weird. I think it's just that now that there's a tangible time to put next to the name, people start to freak out. No one was looking at Tyler Algiere thinking he was a 4.4 running back. Probably maybe a mid to low 4.5.
He did say this offseason he was a 4.38 guy.
Yeah, every single running back. So I can say that. That doesn't mean anything. It's just he's a guy, like, he was really productive, and I think that he found a lot of usage when Zach Wilson was there. And I think a lot of the questions was, is he going to be able to keep doing that when Zach Wilson's gone? And he did. It ended up being a guy that was still very productive. He doesn't have all the explosiveness that you want, but I mean, the dude caught out of the backfield. He was able to pass block pretty well, and he's a good zone runner. He's going to be one of those guys that he's probably going to get taken in the 4th or 5th round of the NFL draft, and maybe fall to like the 3rd round of your rookie drafts. But he's just one of those guys that I have very little problem with taking him on my fantasy football team. And I don't see a whole lot of weaknesses in his game aside from just, he's not the best athlete. That's why he gets all these James Conner comps, and it fits.
Gotcha. Guys, any comments about Tyler? And Tyler, who's the best athlete of all time named Tyler? I need to know.
Oh man, that's tough.
We got Tyler Huntley, quarterback for the Ravens.
Yeah,
he's a pretty good athlete. I'm trying to think of anyone like famous.
Me.
Tyler Johnson.
So going with Tyler Algiere, he's actually my Zach Moss, Trey Sermon player of the year. He is my avoid player. I watched Zach Moss and I was like, no, he's not it. I don't care about analytics. I didn't see it. Trey Sermon, exact same thing. I'm like, it's like watching the same person. When I watched Tyler Algiere, it was the same thing. I was like, I went in hoping to like him because I like Jamal Williams out of BYU. I liked him as a prospect. So I'm sitting here really hoping to be amazed, but I was like, yeah, there's nothing there for me, in my opinion. So I'm probably not going to roster him.
I think the inflation in his stats that we saw in his senior year were more based on opportunity share. Like they didn't really have too much in BYU to be pushing. They leaned on him to get it done. And the addition of that with the receiving capability, I think it works. He can pass block a little bit, but the guy's a bulldozer. You give it to him, he's going to knock over the defensive line. He's going to run right through it. So I like him as a dart throw later in the third round, beginning of the fourth. If he's still there, yeah, of course, I'll take a shot, but I'm not jumping over some other running backs in this tier that we're talking about to go out and get Tyler Algiere for fantasy.
All right, I have the answer for the best athlete named Tyler. It's Tyler Sagan, the hockey player. There you go. Done and done.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Tyler
Tyler
Hero.
Eifert. Not
Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero.
Sagan's probably going to be a Hall of Famer.
Who's got a better shot, Tyler Hero or Tyler Gunther? It's probably me, but that's beside the point.
Debatable.
We'll have another podcast.
Tyler? No.
John Taylor.
Now you're going last name.
Yeah,
or
no,
middle name, whatever it is.
Yeah. Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Son in the name.
Liv
All
Tyler.
right, we're on number 8 after Tyler Algiere, coming in at number 7. Alfredo, who's the Ocho on your list?
All right, so once again, like I'm telling you, 4 through 8 are all guys that can be all interchangeable.
Yeah.
And this one for me, it's the guy that I think a lot of people are sour on as well. And I'm not overly fond of him, but it's Brian Robinson out of Alabama. And it's all these guys kind of fit the same mold. They're all first and second down guys, big body dudes that can go in there and carry. I don't want to say carry the load because they're not necessarily 3 down guys, but they all have that ability to work in the goal line area. For me, the thing is that, Robinson, he's never really super explosive. He's okay between the tackles. He kind of struggles to make guys miss, but he's going to do exactly what you want him to do. If you need him to go out there and get 3.5, 4 yards, then cool. And that's, it sounds very just kind of, ham and cheese sandwich, but that's Brian Robinson, man. He's just kind of plain.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
The NFL needs some ham and cheese once in a while.
And that's why I kind of have him here, because I think that there are going to be a lot of NFL teams that look at that and say, okay, we don't need necessarily the guy with all like the frills and everything else. We need a guy who played in the SEC, who played at a top school, who has the size. And that's the thing, is that a lot of these NFL GMs, they look at the traits and they kind of say like, okay, this guy has all the ingredients that we need to make a good meal out of this. And Brian Robinson has that. He's just not necessarily super flashy. And I think there's going to be teams that could look at him and say, okay, we can kind of make this work for an early down role.
So similar to like a Damien Harris kind of thing. And we see a lot of NFL teams going in that direction with supplemental back situations where they have interchangeable backs coming in on certain setups and certain scenarios. So I think, he's got the college behind him. He waited his turn behind Najee Harris, behind Damien Harris. I think that he makes it onto an NFL roster and contributes eventually, maybe not the primary back, though.
Do you guys remember Bo Scarborough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell me he's comping him to Bo Scarborough.
No. I was just thinking about him.
Of Alabama backs that didn't pan out. Yeah,
Man, there's a lot of hype to him. Oof.
Yeah, Bo's definitely.
But there's not that much hype on Brian Robinson, so I think he's falling in some fantasy drafts.
It's
and I like
fair
that.
Though. It's fair. Like he's not anything special.
He's
or
not
flashy.
great.
Yeah,
he really is.
He's fine. Like I would say
I had him at 7. So
since
I'm
I like
right
ham
there.
and cheese, I would say he's like a ungrilled grilled cheese. Like it hasn't been cooked yet.
No, grilled ham and cheese.
That's a really good sandwich, though.
With the butter still cold on top of the butter.
You're mixing it up with Bijan.
All right, I'm the chef.
What about a panini?
It's mixing it up with Bijan Robinson,
Bijan Robinson is totally grilled,
Bijan mustard?
cut into triangles, crust off, ready to serve.
Yes.
All right. Brian Robinson is the grilled cheese. We said he was ham and cheese, so we got to put the ham on the sandwich, Tyler.
Okay.
But he's pre-grilled, like you mentioned, with the butter still cold on top of the bread, not hitting the pan yet, just waiting there.
Yeah.
So he needs some time. He needs a little time to get warmed
up.
And we'll see how he ends up. And maybe eventually he's something that we can swallow for fantasy. But right now, he's a little bit hesitant.
He screams Seattle. Like if Pete Carroll's there,
leave the food comes to me there. Okay.
Pete Carroll's is sitting there. He's like, oh, give me that hard.
Give me another Chris Carson.
Yeah, another one.
Give me that Chris Carson.
It's like Pete Carroll's Viagra when he's 70 is like, oh, give me a running back.
That's what he's chewing on the
give
whole
me a running
time.
back. I need everything, but just give me a running back. I'll be all right.
Baby, I'm drafting a running back today. Go, Pete, go.
He wakes up, throws 3 wads of gum in his mouth, says, I'm good.
Oh my God, he chews like
New
a
sponsor
cow.
for
I can't stand
Cialis.
watching him on the sideline.
New sponsor of Cialis, Pete Carroll.
God. All right, before we get to number 9, I did want to give a shout out to our last sponsor of the evening. It's Dynasty Nerds. Make sure to go to dynastynerds.com, sign up for the Nerd Herd, and when you do that, you can use code DHH for a 15% off of any subscription that they have. It's a great website. Trade tools, extra Nerd Herd episode. They have a prospect film room, prospect scores, and Dynasty GM on there as well. Rich is awesome, great person, runs a great company.
Love that dude.
The Nerd Herd is great. So make sure to go to Dynasty Nerds today. Code DHH, 15% off. So, Alfredo, we got 2 more to round out this top 10. So let's go with number 9.
Don't say my guy.
Oh no! If he doesn't say them, we each get to throw one in at the end. If
the wild card
need to be talked
gonna
about, we're gonna.
I know he's going to
keep running.
Well, don't worry. So right now at number 9, it's James Cook out of Georgia.
I'm not happy though.
Well,
I am.
I mean, I actually do really love his profile. Okay. I like his athleticism. I love that he can run a 4.4. I love what you see when he does make the explosive play. It kind of seems like he's an all or nothing guy. It's either the super explosive play or like the first guy touches his shoelace and he's falling down. And that's kind of the thing with James Cook is I don't think that an NFL franchise is looking at that and saying, let's invest an early pick on this guy that we can't typically use as a runner. We're going to have to use him as a passing guy. And a guy like him I see him being drafted 4th round maybe. And so like for me, it's kind of interchangeable with all these guys. If he goes earlier and it's a team that really needs a guy to get like some early down work, but he's kind of got some of that like Nyheim Hines to him. And that doesn't mean he's going to be bad for fantasy. When it comes to fantasy and dynasty, like I just don't want to be drafting players for what their floor is. I kind of want to draft them for what their ceiling could be. And just from a scouting standpoint, there's not enough boxes that he checks off for me in terms of the size and in terms of the contact balance, in terms of the versatility of what he can do. He's a satellite back that you can kind of swing around the offense.
I would love to see the Pats draft him in the draft. And James White is coming off a hip injury. They signed him to a 1-year deal for not a lot of money, but he would be great with a combination of either Damien Harris or Ramondre. And then a James Cook would get me excited for that landing spot. And then I could buy a Cook jersey too, because I'm a Pats fan. So it would be great. I would love that. I just think that would make a lot of sense because Brandon Bolden's gone. They don't have another pass catching back outside of James Taylor. White. I mean, JJ is okay.
He's fine.
He's fine, but he's a guy. He's just a guy.
So
I think Cook would be sweet there.
With Cook, I thought he was going to weigh in actually less. So when he was close to that 200, I like that. And me personally, having his brother in the NFL, I know that's going to be a huge narrative. I think it helps him in the fact of training, having kind of the inside knowledge of what to expect. Yeah, what to expect in the NFL, what you need to do to become something. I mean, James Cook was a very high recruit as well he's an all-purpose back recruit. And he could have went to Florida State and really made Doug happy, but he didn't. He went to Georgia and he didn't get used as much because Georgia doesn't use their running backs like
because they've got like 5-star recruits all over the place.
So in my opinion, I love the fact that he can do everything outside of the running back. He can catch passes. He's a great route runner for a running back. And I think in the NFL, he can start learning more of the knowledge to be a running back. And say he gangs 5-10 pounds.
Damn it.
There could be a ceiling. This is going to be really crazy. LaShawn McCoy.
Damn it. I hate you. You just killed my whole take. I have nothing say Aaron Jones. Say. I'm looking at my screen and I would share it, but there's a lot of information on here. LaShawn McCoy's ceiling is written on my guy.
And I actually did not read this.
And I write it and I says needs to add some weight. 10 pounds would be great.
You guys actually agreeing on something.
I mean, wow. Tyler, I want to give you a hug through the screen because we never agree on players, number one. where there's always some kind of disappointment. But you said it like I wrote it, so I'm going to back off. Maybe you got to hack into my notes, but
I did not, and this is actually
that was
quite
awesome,
shocking.
dude.
And Aaron
I'm
Jones
right
is
there with
another
you.
great comp who, despite the size, if he can get some touches, like Alfredo was saying, in the early downs, I think he can thrive. He does need to work on contact balance. That's probably a big thing. But other than that, I think he can. There's a very high ceiling to James Cook. And in my opinion, if I'm going mid-second, I want to go for the home run. I want to go for that high ceiling. And I loved what I saw on tape from the pass catching aspect where he just seems like he's gliding. It's effortlessly. I don't know if it's a family thing, but he just seems like it's effortlessly when he's running.
They had
around.
one of those things that you slide back and forth on in the living room when they were kids, like one of those.
That's all they did.
Things
I really
with Wii
can't believe you said
with Wii Sports,
McCoy, man. That just kills me. The other guy I thought he looked at like Kareem Hunt in his freshman year, in his rookie year in the NFL. He's small. He doesn't need to be. Remember when they had Spencer Ware and they had Spencer Ware running between the tackles, and then they took Kareem Hunt and they were like, "Here, just run a route and catch the ball." James Cook can do that, and if he gets into the open field, he's going to be dangerous.
So do you guys want to know what I heard on Kareem Hunt? We brought him up a couple of times. Did you know he went in as like a defensive line prospect? He was very heavy and he lost a bunch of weight.
Really?
He was so small.
We might need a fact check on that.
Yeah, so I don't know about that.
I swear it was like Daniel Jeremiah. I heard it on his podcast or somebody like that.
Bring up the stat. I want to see it.
That can't be at like 5'10".
Yeah, he's 5'10". What is he? He's like 220 now.
Yeah,
but he was like 210 when he joined the NFL. Just like James Cook. No.
Sure, it wasn't like lineman Robert Hunt. That's an offensive
lineman.
It was his brother Hunt.
You mean Dolphins legend Robert Hunt?
Yes, absolutely, Dolphins legend.
But no, for me, James Cook is my 4. He's right behind Spiller, and it's all based on ceiling. Like I love the ceiling. I think he holds the highest ceiling, and if he doesn't pan that 3-down workload type back, in my opinion, he's safe. Because he's going to be a pass catching back, and that's what the NFL is doing these days. They're going to these pass catching backs. They're more valuable in dynasty as well, and his longevity in career will be a little longer as well.
All right, so now we're at number 10 to wrap us up, and then we'll do a little superlatives. Well, not superlatives. We'll do a little extra on top of that. But who's your number 10, Alfredo?
All right, so this took a little bit to kind of come up with it, and I left some names out. Like it's not Kyron Williams. It's not Rashad White, who a lot of people really like.
I don't get why.
I just was not fond of either of those guys, and I just don't like them as runners. So here's a name that you probably haven't heard a lot, and I did a video for Football Guys. I believe it was like one of my first or second videos with them, where I talked about this player, Kennedy Brooks, the running back out of Oklahoma, potentially being the next Elijah Mitchell, and his profile, man, like I don't know if it happens to you guys, but there's so many times where like I'll turn on the tape on someone, and within the first couple of plays, I go, I'm going to like this player. And it was Kennedy Brooks. And it's not that he did anything flashy. It's that he's a really smart runner. He does this thing where he knows he's not the fastest guy in the field. And so he actually kind of sucks his defenders into his blocks, and he kind of leverages them into his zone blocks. And he's going to be good for a zone run team. And that's why I kind of comped him to Elijah Mitchell, because he's that guy that I can totally see the Dolphins taking in the 5th or 6th round and becoming, the starter over Chase Edmonds and Myles Gaskin and being relevant.
God, Gaskin.
Don't even get me started. But he's a dude that at Oklahoma, he had 3 years of over 1,000 yards rushing. We're talking about a 12 touchdown season, a 13 touchdown season. Like he's kind of done it all. And he did this starting out from, he redshirted his first year, but after that, it was all systems go. And he sat out because of COVID. But while he was there, he kept a bunch of other players kind of off his back. Ramondre Stevenson, Rodney Anderson, Trey Sermon, like guys that all, became highly touted NFL prospects, or at least within the fantasy community, and they could not overtake him. And these were guys that we were talking about last year, Stevenson and Sermon, as being, highly regarded draft picks. And Kennedy Brooks was able to hold his own. So I really like his skill set. I think that when an NFL, he may not be sexy for fantasy, and I get it. He's not like the overly fast guy. He's not super explosive, not a lot of long runs, and he's not the best receiver. But an NFL team is going to look at him and really, really like what he brings to the table.
So if you liked Trey Sermon, I feel like you have to be forced to like Kennedy Brooks, because he is the reason why Trey Sermon had to transfer, because Kennedy Brooks, like you said, pretty much held him out. And Stevenson came in. Oklahoma liked Stevenson. They want to get him more playing time, and Sermon was kind of last man standing. But yeah, if you liked Sermon, then yeah, I feel like you're forced to. You have to like Kennedy Brooks. I'm not on board with him, but if he does go to a team, like you said, that fits his running style, yeah, I'm all for it. And he was a very sought after Devy guy. A lot of people really liked Kennedy Brooks. They thought he was going to come in, be like a second round type player. He came in, took over for Joe Mixon. People thought he was the next thing, but I don't know. He's fine. He's better than an uncooked grilled cheese, but he's
He's got a little warming up on they're not quite golden brown yet.
I think that all these guys outside of the top 3 kind of become dart throws, and their draft capital and landing spot is going to mean so much for them.
Yeah,
100%.
All right, so who's a couple guys, Alfredo, that are right outside of your top 10, or maybe like a deep cut player that you really, really like in this class?
Okay, so the guys that were just outside of it: Pierre Strong, Tyler Beatty, and Ty Chandler out of North Carolina. Those were 3 guys that just kind of missed the cut for me. But one guy, you mentioned it, right? And it's kind of like everyone's always looking for that superlative of who's the next Elijah Mitchell or who's the next James Robinson. For me, the next James Robinson in this class could be Kevin Harris, the running back out of South Carolina.
I had a feeling you might say Kevin Harris.
He's just one of those guys, man, that I think a lot of people have forgotten about simply because there wasn't a whole lot of production this year. And I mean, we saw Zaquandre Wright go in and go in and kind of, be somewhat productive, and he looked good. But Kevin Harris the year before, you turn on that film, and that's a guy who looked like he would have been one of the top 3 backs in this class. And at his size, 220 pounds, I really, really love the film. It's going to be a matter of how do the NFL teams view him. I know that he had the back surgery, but that was just to remove a cyst. Like, that wasn't necessarily like a big, scary thing. And talking to my co-host, Dr. Vignesh Doraiswamy for the Pretend GM, he's like, yeah, there shouldn't be anything there that becomes a lingering issue. So he's one of those guys that might kind of just sneakily fall down NFL draft boards and sneakily fall down your dynasty rookie draft boards. But he's a dude that once he gets into training camp, I have a feeling that this is the guy that we're going to be hearing a lot about.
Sleeper alert right here.
I love that pick. Like, that's
a nice one.
Phenomenal. Like, his tape is great. He should be higher for a lot of people.
Yeah. James, who you got for any notables here?
I mean, the notable was Pierre Strong. I really think he's a little bit raw. Coming out of South Dakota State, played there with Trey Lance. I think he could be somebody that
false.
What?
Trey Lance was North Dakota. Get your Dakotas.
He was North Dakota, not South Dakota.
North Dakota.
I mean, I thought they were still linked together.
Don't be messing up your Dakotas.
You mean Dallas Goedert? Dallas Goedert was South Dakota State.
Oh, Jesus. I always get picked on here.
No, you're Midwest states.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the North, man. I'm a warmer weather kind of guy. I live in New Jersey, South Jersey, by the way, South. So as long as it's
I bet Alfredo would really get along with a lot of people in Jersey and New York.
Well, Florida, and I think actually it's the opposite, because he probably deals with all the New Yorkers and
the big chains.
The New Jerseyans that come down there in the snowbirds.
The
snowbirds.
So like, if you're not watching, you need to.
Like and subscribe.
No, go away.
Exactly.
Get out of Florida.
I love Florida. Florida doesn't love me. We mentioned, we've said Kyron Williams in passing. I think he's the last guy on here that people can go out there and take a shot on late. He may surprise some people. He has good pass catching skills. I know he was slow during the combine, picked up a little bit more speed in his pro day, must have practiced getting off the line a little bit faster just for contract sake. Like, he needs to make this happen for himself. But I think that's it, man. I don't see too many other guys out here. Maybe Master Teague as a deep dart throw.
Oh, that's a Debbie name. Yeah. Kyron for me. I'm a Notre Dame guy. I wasn't too hyped about him after the combine. And if he
you pooped on him. after the combine. Say it right and try to poop on me.
If he lands in the 5th round, I think I'm fine with him in the 3rd as a rookie pick. In my opinion, I think he's a 6th round pick, kind of the Eno Benjamin range. And I do think he'll be supplanted into a pass catching role if he can make it into the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he makes it to special teams, I think he can transfer eventually to the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
I've got a deep cut for you. If you're looking for a hyper athletic running back that not many people know about, he probably won't get drafted in your rookie drafts. What about Julius Chestnut out of Sacred Heart? Let's go. That's a deep cut. You're probably looking at me like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I know who your guy is, though. Just say your real guy that you like.
His guy was Isaiah Pacheco,
Ingram,
wasn't it?
I do like Ingram.
Ingram.
I do like. I mean, if you like Brian Robinson, like Keontae Ingram seems like fairly similar to me. He's gonna be one of. I don't know if he's gonna get. He'll probably get drafted in the 6th or 7th.
If you want a ham and cheese sandwich without the cheese,
without the ham
and no ham,
if you just want bread,
no
it's Keontae Ingram out of USC.
You want a little air in that sandwich? Well,
it's
he's your guy.
Old bread that was open a little bit, but you know what?
It's got the blue rimmed bread.
The blue rimmed bread. I don't know what that is. But yeah,
well,
so
it's mold. It's mold.
That's nice. So yeah, Julius Chestnut is a name to remember. Just put it up.
Is that Joey Chestnut's brother?
He eats a lot of hot dogs real fast, especially over July 4th
sounds
weekend.
Like he squirrels around too much.
It's kind of
Joey Chestnut's away.
Yay. Well, that is going to wrap up our running back talk for this week. Thank you, Alfredo, for joining us. I'm going to give you the stage. Speak highly about yourself. You can use 3rd person if you'd like. It's time to pump yourself up in the most, crazy way possible. So take it away, Alfredo, not Italian, Brown.
All right, so I won't go 3rd person here, but for the Pretend GM, that's my podcast. We actually have our tier 2 of wide receiver rankings dropping tomorrow. This has been going through the wide receivers. I think that's the real gold in this draft, and I think that's where a lot of dynasty players are going to be looking in their rookie drafts. So normally our show is like 20, 25 minutes. We spent 45 minutes in the last episode and 40 on this one, so we're like doubling our time, putting in a lot into these wide receivers. I'm really excited to drop that. Dr. Vig and we kind of go into everything from my scouting reports on the guys to what he sees if there's a medical thing that we need to talk about. So that's really cool, man. I'm excited for the NFL draft to finally happen. I've kind of forgotten that there's actually other players in the NFL that are not rookies. And I was asked to put my rankings together and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that there's like dudes on teams. My bad.
Who's this Camara guy?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So yeah. So for James, for Tyler, once again, thank you, Alfredo, for joining us. Thank you to all our great sponsors. We appreciate you. If you're listening, make sure you go on iTunes, leave us a review, leave us a rating. It helps us get bumped up the dynasty charts, and we would highly appreciate that. And again, we're here every Sunday at 9 p.m. on YouTube. So like and subscribe to the channel. Just search for DHH on YouTube, and you can watch our semi-beautiful faces and listen at the same time instead of listening to it the next day in your car or doing dishes or whatever you might be doing. Bottom line is, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week on the Dynasty Happy Hour.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.